What's down, people, and welcome back to another episode of Ghetto Gospel. So where we left off at, we talked about how bad Abram wanted a child so he could inherit all of his stuff. And God told him he wasn't just going to give him a child, but he was going to give him more offspring than there was stars in the sky. Abram believed him, and God was impressed with that, so much that he counted Abram righteous for it. All he had to do to get the badge of righteous is to believe what God said, because he sure wasn't living right. And we about to see that in 3D. Abram asked God how he could know for sure that it was going to happen. Like, he was asking what he could use as a reminder. So God put Abram in a trance and gave him the world's worst nightmare. Then Abram had to watch him walk through a bloody scene, and he made a covenant so Abram wouldn't forget. And now we caught up. So I've been low-key not looking forward to this chapter. Everything that's in the Bible is in there for a reason, but some stuff that's in there is more uncomfortable than others. Stuff like slavery. I said we was gonna talk about it. Now it's a couple of things to remember going into this. It's slavery. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it or act like it ain't what it is. And because of the unique perspective that me and other people like me got on this country that we live in, there's some stuff about this story that I'm pretty sure you only gonna notice if you come from where I come from. The first thing I notice is that if things is bad for a group of people, it's dialed up to being even worse for women. Follow me. So the first thing it say in chapter 16 is that Sarai, Abram's wife, ain't had no kids. So she took her Egyptian slave girl, Hagar, and decided she was gonna make her a surrogate, old school style, because the Lord stopped her from having kids. Yeah, that's the excuse she used. Don't you think it's funny how folks like to blame the Lord for them doing stuff that they ain't got no business doing? She told Abram go smash that girl so she could have a baby through her, and she was gonna be like Abram's second wife. And just like you would expect, Abram ain't waste no time getting the business. Now, there's so many layers of messed up here. First, when God said he was gonna give Abram a son from his own body, you think Abram was confused about where that son was gonna come from? That man had a whole wife out here. He knew what God was saying. The other thing is, it's bad enough being enslaved, where you essentially somebody else's property, but as a woman, her master or mistress in Sarai's case ain't just controlling what's happening outside of her body, but what's happening inside it too. Now, it don't tell you how old Hagar was, but I imagine, regardless of how old she was, she ain't want no crusty old Abram climbing on top of her, let alone having to carry his baby. Actually, I don't know about that last part. Maybe I'm just seeing it too much through my American eyes. I mean, back then, if you had a baby by a well-off dude, he was required to take care of you. That was almost like the NBA player retirement plan that everybody be trying to snag come All-Star weekend. But even then, them women got a choice. Hagar ain't have no choice, and nobody wrote down how she felt about it yet. So time go by, and surprise, surprise, I guess Abram's 85-year-old pimp juice still had some pop to it, and now Hagar pregnant. And once she realized she was pregnant, she was feeling some kind of way towards Sarai. And guess who Sarai blamed for the whole thing? If you said Abram, you done either read this story before, or you probably a dude. So Sarai snapping on Abram talking about, I gave you my slave girl, and now that you done got her pregnant, she giving me the side eye. It's all your fault. And I wasn't there, but I imagine Abram was just up there like, now, I don't claim to fully understand how women think, but I imagine it just makes sense to be pissed off if you gotta carry somebody else's baby against your will. So Abram was like, man, it's your slave girl, do what you want with her. And she mistreated that girl so bad that she ran away into the wilderness while she was pregnant. Now, I don't think y'all fully understand just how dependent women was on men or the household they was a part of to provide for them back then. It's a lot of folks these days talking about how the patriarchy need to die. And based on what I'm hearing from a lot of these chauvinists with platforms, them folks is probably right. But at that time, they ain't just live in a patriarchal society. Patriarchy was just a way of life. For the most part, society was set up where once a woman got married, that man was everything to her. He had to take care of everything for her, just like she was one of his kids. And she ain't even had the option of doing a job that ain't tied directly into supporting the family. Her job was to support the house, and his job was to get out here and get it by any means. So the fact that Hagar ran away from her husband tell us a whole lot about how bad she was getting treated. She was willing to lose her source of everything just to get away from them folks. So the next thing it say is that the angel of the Lord showed up and found her posted up by some water in the wilderness. And as far as I could tell, it sounded like she was headed back to Egypt. Now it's a couple things here. Pay attention to the fact that it ain't say a angel of the Lord or one of God's angels. It said the angel of the Lord, like it's something special about this angel. The other thing is the fact that he showed showed up to check in on Hagar showed me something I done missed all of these times that I read it before. God knew what was going on with her. While Abram, who was supposed to be God's man, was oppressing her, God wasn't blind to it. And he asked her, where you came from and where you going? And whenever you hear God or an angel asking a question, you gotta know they ain't asking because they don't know. It's almost like when your mama used to ask you, boy, is you crazy? She know you ain't crazy. She wants you to remember that. So Hagar responded to the angel, I'm running away from that crazy woman Sarai. And the angel was like, girl, go back to that woman and submit to her authority. Which sound like, seriously? But then he followed it up with this. He told her that he was gonna give her buku offspring to the point that there was gonna be too many to count, which was the same thing God told Abram. Then he was like, you pregnant and you gonna have a son. Name that boy Ishmael, because God done heard you crying about them folks mistreating you. The name Ishmael literally means God hear you. And the fact that the angel is telling her all of this stuff that God said tell you that he ain't just making this stuff up. He's speaking for God right now. So then he was like, now your boy, he gonna be a donkey out here. He gonna have beef with everybody and everybody gonna have beef with him. And he gonna end up living close to his relatives. So she was like, Lord, I'm gonna call you Elroy, which in Hebrew meant God who sees me. And then she said, did I really see the one who see me? And she said a whole lot in just a couple of lines. This is literally the only words you see from Hagar in the whole Bible, and I think she made them count. First, when she said she was running away from Sarai, the angel ain't tell her she was tripping. He just told her to go back, which, given the times and the lack of opportunities for women, was probably the right move. A lot of times the best move ain't necessarily the most comfortable one. Second, regardless of where the voice was coming from, she recognized that it was God who was talking to her. Last, she the first person in the Bible to give God a title when she called him the God who sees me. And on top of that, she recognized how big of a deal it was to see the God who saw her. So the last thing the chapter say is that because of this whole event, when they eventually built a well where that spring was in the wilderness, the spot where she had the meeting with the angel of the Lord, they named it the Well of the Living One Who Sees Me, which sound like a lot of words, but it's a little bit shorter in the original language. And after that, it just say that she had Ishmael when Abram was 86. So what we get from this whole story? First off, people be tripping. People been tripping, especially God's people. A lot of folks will read the story and be like, why God ain't step in and stop all of this from happening? And for number one, that's a way bigger question than most folks realize. Like, we don't really get the full answer until way later in the book. But looking at it from a small scale, what you want God to step in and stop? Slavery? Sure. Racism? Absolutely. Sexism? Okay. Murder? Definitely. Xenophobia? That's hating foreigners or folks from another country. Yeah, okay, I'll take that. What about pride? What about greed? What about laziness? What about walking around pissed off all the time? We tend to want God to step in and fix everything that's wrong with everybody else. But what about that nasty little secret that you hoping ain't nobody ever gonna find out about? Obviously, God know about all of it. And the good news is he got a plan to make it all right. But he gonna do it his way, in his time. Because the truth is that can't none of us even live up to our own standard of what's right and wrong. If you impatient and want to skip to the answers in the back of the book, check out the first link in the description below. Otherwise, that's it for this week. I'll see y'all next week, and as always, peace, and I hope y'all people straight.